Okay, we are live. Okay, I just heard my echo. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, good. I think we should be good. So welcome everyone to our live discussion of yesterday's Sunday service. Me in another attempt to give an introduction to this. I think what I do want to say is that I really love that recently Jeff and Shalia have started to talk about these really, what we consider controversial topics, like last week, like the entire LGBTQ community kind of issues, and this week, like now abortion. And it's, like so, yeah, I think it's just like great to talk about it because, like in truth, there's no really like reason for something to be like kind of a taboo or controversial topic. Like, we should be able to talk about everything. And the only reason why these topics are considered so controversial is because as a society, we haven't quite managed to bring peace to these areas, these topics yet. And that's exactly what Jeff and Shreya do. They like bring the peace, like the piece as in like peace, and the piece as in like the missing piece to this. And that's, and actually, making these like because they bring the peace, so that is actually, it's so much easier to talk about these things from a place of peace, and all of a sudden they actually don't are these like, very controversial and like hard to discuss topics anymore, but just like very straightforward. Okay, this is divine truth. It's like talk about it, and it just makes sense all of a sudden. So yes, this week's topic was abortion, which I was really surprised when I, saw the service, and it was like, I read unionism is abortion. I was like, oh wow, didn't see this one coming, but like nice. And I know they've talked about this here and there in Tifa's classes, and I did, remember kind of what they said back then, but I really loved that they like went so much deeper into, explaining basically, the issue of abortion itself, and then all the like basically like the situations around it, like how a man can deal with that and what the options are and all of that. So really, went deep into that. So yeah, I guess to kind of start off, let's see, where do we want to start with this? I think go ahead, Laurenzi, if you have.
Maybe someone should just start if you don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoy this subject. It really brought me a lot of peace to know. But just to start with the beginning, just to retake something from the service, was like in a lot of countries, abortion is considered killing a baby. And like the Church of Union, even if like in some countries is like believing like that, the Church of Union perspective is like depends of the situation, and the situations were discussed there. So I think we will go in depth in this discussion as well. But I just feel I want to go straight to something that does go quite far into the service. But what really stood up for me was about bringing a child into this life, and let's say you have medium income, and you're like at a you're not a low class, you're not a high class, you're a medium class. You bring a kid in and you want to give them like a high class kind of stuff, high class living. And in that, like, what struck me was my situation, that my parents brought me into a low class, but they tried to give me a medium class. But I didn't knew that me accepting some of their stuff will be like a contract. Let's say that, what Jeff said about if your parents want to give you more, it's like in some country they do this so you could take care of them when they're old. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want that. Because that's not really nice. But I see that in my parents, that they already did with my mother, with her mother, with my grandmother, that now she's taking care of her. because my grandmother gave her a house, like, but that's so limiting. And now that I'm able to see it with a different clarity that is not really compassionate in this way, I'm just like within myself, like, cut everything there. I don't want that. I don't want to have to deal with something like that. And I already told my parents, like, I don't want to take care of you in that way. Like, it's not compassionate for me to do that. Like, where is the freedom of me? Why do, like, there's no allowing myself to succeed there, because I'm going to live my life just to have success so I can support you, which I'm not your source. God is everyone's source. So in that way, it's like really bringing the peace on, like, it's okay to not accept this kind of traits in your life, so you can just succeed with God, because it's just heavy and it's not fully yours. It's like they're trying to just give you all that vibration so you can grow, just to take care of them afterwards. So you give it back. So the the way itself, it's like, what, like how they say with karma, like with the law of karma, what you give is what you receive. Well, if what you give, it's a relationship, it's a codependent relationship, that's what you're going to receive back.
Mhm.
And that's not really something that I really desire. And I bet no one here wants a codependent relationship to receive instead.
Hmm. I actually love that you started with this topic, because that was definitely one of like my favorite bits from the sermon too. Because I mean, quite honestly, I've never, like when it comes to abortion, that was for me always like a very, theoretical thing. I never was like confronted with that like physically in real life. So, it was never like this like big problematic thing for me. But this like entire thing that they said around like, raising children, all of that, really spoke to me. And I had this like with because obviously while I was listening, I was thinking about my relationship with my parents too. And what really spoke to me was when they said that like you like your children don't owe you anything, but you owe them to reach this, to live at the same like level of life as you do. That's like your responsibility as a parent. And you that because it's like you owe that to your children. It's not that your children have to give anything back to you. That's like it's like and that like really, because I always had like, because my parents like they loved me a lot and they always gave a lot to me. And I always inside had, I guess, kind of like almost a bit of guilt of like, oh, I have to repay them somehow because they've given me so much or something like that. And when they said like, as a child, you don't owe your parents anything, that was like a huge relief for me, why I was like, oh, I don't. But then also, to be quite honestly, if I end up, which I highly intend and desire super rich in, later in my life, or like sooner in my life, who knows when. And I do have this desire to like give something to my parents back in some way. Like I think I actually will, just because I desire it and I love them. So I think as long as it's not, because like now in your situation you spoke of it, like it's like codependency and all of that, and that's like absolutely not okay when it's like your parents expect from you to like support them back. But if you, from your free will and desire to give something back to your parents, just as a kind of out of gratitude and all of that, I think that is really okay. But as really important that it's not coming from codependency or from a feeling of like you owe them anything.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really like important here, like as well, like if you're wanted or not wanted, like that thing. Because yeah, you don't owe them anything, and in that way, like it really feels relieving even for me to just like know, like, I don't owe anything to my parents. But as you're speaking, just this thing came to me, like I know this, but seems like I got more emotional about this, like, because I know that in my case, I was um I was a bit of an unwanted child.
Mm.
And just now realizing as you're speaking that, oh my God, like, yeah, my parents are just like not having a good time. They're having so many inconveniences. And now I realize why, like, all these things happen, because like me, my parents always wanted a girl. So I was just an unwanted child for them. But then they try to convince themselves that they actually want this child. but still I didn't have the best childhood ever, to be honest. And I can see now how this, like how people just like uh, try to, I mean, by the old ways, let's say, by the ways that we've been teach, like, oh, just keep the baby, or just like love the baby, or how it was in your case, like it's just like, let's love you. But for you, maybe it was like, oh, you're wanted there, so it was appropriate. But
Yeah, for me, it's like I have like I don't think I never felt like I was an unwanted child. I don't think that is the case at all, because my parents really loved the shit out of me. But for me, it was always more like this, like, oh, they give so much to me, I feel guilty. Like, how can I receive that and not have to give anything back? So I always felt like everything my parents give me is coming from a conditional place, where they only support me if I fulfill certain conditions, or they actually don't really want to support me but feel obligated to do that. And that's like, kind of from like this perspective, it's like, even though in truth they actually wanted to support me, I never felt like they really want to, and I always felt they only do it out of obligation. And I think that's one part of this coin also, that that like is important to hear, like this, like, I guess feeling like, so that when people give to me or love me, they're doing it out of obligation, not because they want it. So that's like my part to heal in all of this, which they perfectly mirror. Yeah, just wanted to share my experience with all of this.
Yeah, and like to me also, like what you guys are talking is like so important, and it brought me back to like something that Shalia said in the service, when she said, like, like, if you become a parent, it's just because you're meant to see your kid to thrive. That's it. Like that's the only, like that's the like that's the only purpose, kind of like, just to see your kid thrive. And so of course that's something that we, in a way, none of us really had with our parents, because our parents didn't have the maturity, because of the consciousness also as well, like the collective consciousness. And so like it's very nice to be aware of that right now, so we can start making new choices as well. And something that I was really talking with God the other day, when I was thinking about my childhood, and everything. And I was remembering like moments where I was feeling that I needed love, and my parents were not there to love me. Like my parents also loved the shit out of me, right? Like, like a lot. But I needed a lot of love, like a lot. And so like there were a lot of moments where like I didn't get that, and I remember that to myself, that it was like at nights where like I was always crying, like I wanted to live with my parents, like crying in the door, stuff like that, right? And so like I went back to those moments, and I was like, oh, like that didn't feel good, and I didn't feel like that I was in heaven. But God told me, like, that's a lie, because you have always been in heaven. Your entire childhood, you were in heaven. You have always been in heaven, and that's the truth. The rest was just part of the illusion, part of the lack of maturity. My parents were young when they had me. The consciousness was very different back then. So it's just, but what I really like was when God told me that. He's like, it's not true that you had those bad experiences and that you were alone or abandoned. You were in heaven, and you have always been. And so there is no reason for us to to feel like sorry about the past. I know that like this has, maybe it's not too related with it, but it's coming to me right now, because I was really feeling that maybe the past, I was not able to let go of so many things in my past, feeling like, why did I have to go through that? Like I was not happy, like as if like my past had to be perfect. And then God told me, like, everything was perfect. You were always perfect. You were always with me. You were always in heaven. The rest is just the illusion. So it's just the illusion that we are releasing. And that also, of course, is related to the entire abortion topic, right? Like something that Jeff said at the beginning was like, it's been so far, the abortion topic has been like either white or black, right? It's like, okay, but right now it's like, okay, it's not either, it's not like that anymore. It's not about that. It's about, it can be very peaceful, and it has like a completely new perspective. And that's what Jeff and Shalia are giving to the world. That's what they gave to the world with the Sunday service, right? Like this new way. And it felt so good to me, because like I grew up Catholic, and so for me it was like, if you ever have an abortion, like, oh my God, that's the devil, right? Like that's awful. And so it never really clicked me. I was like, it doesn't make sense, because what if, it doesn't really feel good to have a baby and you do it? Like, that's not good, right? So I really love everything that Jeff and Shalia said, and how they say, like, yeah, you are killing a baby if you have an abortion, but that doesn't mean that, like, oh my God, you're a killer and like you're going to hell, or that your baby is going to hell, right? Like, it just means that you will pay the karma. But the universe, I love something that Jeff said, it's like the universe will always make sure that you are paying the karma in a very compassionate way.
Mhm.
And so either way, God is always there. Either way, either way, God never leaves us. And I love how we are being presented this opportunity to see abortion from a completely new perspective. And also, I feel like the more we see abortion from the perspective that Jeff and Shalia are presenting to us, the more we are going to be more aware of that, more conscious, and people will be more conscious about it, right? Because also, because it's like a bad thing, or either a good thing or a bad thing, or like it's just like so controversial, it's like kind of like messes up with, like, with people's like mentality. And so some people maybe just do it just because they want to be rebel, and they just want to, it's just like, it's just messed up. And so if you really bring clarity to this topic, it's gonna bring a lot, like way more peace. And that's exactly what it happened with John Shalia's Sunday service yesterday. Brings you peace. And so that kind of like balances everything. And so it's very good, like it's very interesting. Like I wrote some like points here.
Also, really quick, we have a couple of comments that came in.
Cool.
So Ray said, talking about like this like idea that, like, when you're bored, like that person goes to hell. He said it's because the world never had a clear answer for where souls are or go, which is like so true, because we thought, especially if you look into the past, the church had all these ideas about like hell and purgatory, and you could even buy these like, I don't know how they call it, but these like papers, you actually like bought papers that said like, this many of you, this part of your sins is like now forgiven because you bought this, like shit like that. It was like, yeah, an intense circus of bullshit, pretty much in many cases. And that's like, like if you don't have clarity, what you do, what happens after death, or even where we are right now, or how like these different, dimensions, to call them that, like, the relationship between them, then it's like, of course you will think like, you won't have clarity of like what happens when I actually abort someone, and you need that clarity in order to make the right decision, and get clear of what is really happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then Uriel said it's unfair to bring a soul into suffering. Yep. And Cornelia was just like, yes, being compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just some comments.
Yeah, like that point made me realize how much of care and attention needs to be given before even conceiving, like before even having a baby. This made me feel like it was very clear when is the right time to actually have a baby. And Shilia mentioned it's not about like it's not about having this cute baby that you get to have, but it's actually like it's almost illegal to spiritual law that you're going to have an unwanted baby, that it would be so costing to you that to have this. And there's another point that Jeff said, that like conception, like you can't use abortion as a form of contraception. Like you can't use that. And that was a really huge point, because there are people who use that as an excuse, saying that sure, I will have sex with whoever, but yeah, sure, I have that option of abortion open for me. But you can't take it so lightly that there's so much behind that we need to consider.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much to consider, like inviting a soul and saying that, like, no, sorry, like,
Yeah.
like that's where you were going with it, I believe. So,
Mm.
It's very like I find so good what you're saying right now, like how important it is to really, because all of this clarity, right, like that we are receiving helps people to ground that, right? So you don't take this, like you're saying, so light, right? Like, oh, okay, whatever. Like if I get pregnant, I just have an abortion. Like you don't want to go through that. Nobody really wants to go through that. Like nobody wants to go through that, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
there's like, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, just I was just wondering that this feeling came up when they mentioned about when you do agree to you're pregnant and you're going through the pregnancy and then you decide that you do not need this baby anymore. Um, that even if you do have an abortion, that you need to still pay that much amount of karmic debt, and it'll be an inconvenience, but it's worth paying that much amount of debt than actually letting the pregnancy grow and actually having the baby, and then the baby going through life with their upsets. Just the feeling I had when she mentioned this, because if two people have had sex and then sometimes there's a feeling when the woman would have had contraception, and like about the pill, and if she does have a pill, there's a certain amount of feeling that the woman feels, and I don't know what that is. I'm just putting it out there that it's like a depression. Like there's a really bad feeling immediately after it, and I was wondering if that feeling is that karmic debt. Like, is that karmic debt that you just went into sex
Mhm.
right away, and without having these clear boundaries of whether, like Jeff says, that you want to have sex with someone who you want to have a baby with. And in one of the TFAS classes, Shilia says that even with your twin flame, you want to make it very clear that you do not want to be pregnant. You do not want to get pregnant when you're gonna have sex in, like, whenever. Um, and only with that intention you're gonna go ahead with it. So every time, so I just felt like every time suppose two people came together and they did not have these clear intentions, and this possibility happens where Jeff said that when two people come together, you're inviting that some soul to come in, like that's just an invitation. And I just wondered that the moment the woman takes a pill, and that's that horrible feeling, I don't know what that is, but there's like a upheaval kind of
Yeah,
feeling.
it would make sense that you would feel bad about, like, you just invited a soul and then you said, fuck off.
Yeah. So
So,
that felt like that's what we would be doing, in that moment. And that's when it became very clear to me. I was like, oh my God, like you need to take care, so much care in this area. You can't, like, you have to respect life. And yeah, Jeff talked about respecting life and respecting that soul's time, the other person's time. Um, yeah, when you invite them and then you say, like, go
yeah,
away.
yeah, there's a
Mm.
lot of interesting stuff that you shared here. It's like, yeah, it's really important to figure out, like, okay, do you want to have a kid or not? Like, I know, like, from my experience, like me and Alexandra, like, no, we don't want kids, like, we don't want. So then we got it clear, and then we just move from that space. But in that way, we know now that we have this clarity, we know we're not inviting something in every time.
Yeah,
And I think that's really it, because, you know, like when both people, you know, in a sexual relationship are really clear on like, okay, we both agree we really don't want kids right now, you're not like, you know, no soul floating around or whatever souls do it's going to pick up on like, oh, let me incarnate in that woman's womb over there, like these could be my parents, like they instantly, you know, because you're like radiating this energy of like, no, we don't want kids, like, sorry guys, please don't come to us kind of thing. So they're like, they know, you know, every time they come near you and Alexander, like, oh yeah, no, they don't want kids, okay, let's move on to the next couple. Maybe someone over there will want a baby and I can incarnate there. But if, you know, you go into, you know, there's generally speaking, because I think like a lot of people, you know, go into having sexual relationships without actually getting clear on these things before they start engaging in that way. And it's kind of this thing that like, you know, you don't really think about it. Obviously, you know, like, okay, let's use contraception or no, because, you know, that's like what I assume most people actually like, you know, do, because you used to, you know, you're like aware of, okay, if I don't, I might get pregnant. But like no one really, like very few people really think about like, I don't, you know, having like really, really clear boundaries. And, you know, that's like something I think that is, you know, like this sermon really brought up, to have really clear boundaries in this area of you know, having a baby and letting a soul incarnate through you, and like being very, very clear on what you want, and not just, you know, letting it happen like, you know, by accident, or kind of also what Shalia mentioned, like, oh, now I got pregnant, okay, maybe actually I do want a baby after all, because I'm pregnant, it's just after baby, which is just coming from, you know, as you said, like hormones, because I think, you know, it makes sense that your body, when you have a baby, would like, you know, due to the hormones, you would all of a sudden feel like stuff you haven't felt before, because you have a baby in your belly, you know, like that does something to you. It's not like, you know, it's like a huge thing. But yeah, that's like really important to just like, you know, get clear. Just because you're pregnant and all of a sudden you have some feelings of like, yeah, maybe I do want a baby, to still, you know, be honest with yourself and feel, is that just because, you know, of hormones and you're actually being pregnant, or is that because I really want a baby? And, you know, like one thing that I really admire so much, and, you know, how Jeff and Shalia have been approaching, you know, or preparing to have Grace, it's like they've been, you know, preparing to be parents and learning about that for like years now. And that's like actually, you know, the level of like preparation it requires to bring a baby into the world, because it's again not just this thing that like, oh, okay, I'm pregnant, let's bring a baby into this world, yay. It's like a huge thing you're committing to, and that requires a lot of preparation. Just kind of like, you know, your harmonious union is not just something where you're like, oh, my harmonious union is here, let's, you know, be in harmonious union. You actually prepare spiritually for it for a very long time before you come into it. You know, so that's kind of, yeah, you know, birthing a harmonious union, birthing a baby, very similar things on some levels.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
But does it mean the baby was there all along, like the harmonious union?
Oh, say that again.
Does it mean that the baby was there all along, like the harmonious union?
Oh. I don't, honestly, I mean,
I was literally questioning that to myself. I was like, because like in my case, right, like from the beginning, Ian was straightforward. He's like, I do not want kids, period. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'd rather be with my twin flame than to have kids. So, you know, let's just do it. And then I started to explore that, and I was like, that can actually be very cool, you know, like, you know, because for me before I always wanted kids, but because I didn't have a purpose, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna be a mom, and that's it. But then, you know, I started to explore that, and then I got to a point where I kind of like let that go, because I thought that was my purpose. And right now it's like, okay, like, you know, if it doesn't happen, I'm happy. If it happens, I mean, I'm happy, you know, like whatever it is, like I honor both sides of me, you know, like part of who wants to have babies and the other part. But the thing is that I was literally thinking like, well, but you know, what if I'm doing what you guys are saying, right? Like, what if I'm just bringing someone and then no, like when I think about it, or maybe I do, and then the baby like, you know, the soul, and it's like, maybe it's not compassionate. And then when you say that right now, Laurencio, like, oh, but what about, you know, if it's all along? What if it's just there and it's been there? And I'm like, oh my God. You know, like kind of like it doesn't feel good, that thought that, like, you know, maybe there is a soul there waiting for me to make the choice, you know, because I feel like I'm forced in that way. So
but then, you know, like no soul depends on you to come into the world, unless, oh, you know, obviously, like for example, Jeff and Shalia's situation, they're like a triplet twin flame, or like a twin flame triplet, you know, that like obviously they will want to give birth to Grace. But even, you know, in that situation, let's say, you know, like you're a triplet and you actually don't want to, you know, like give birth, that child can still be born to someone else, and then you just attract them as you attract your twin flame, you know. But, you know, since it's a child, I guess, and, you know, I can't speak from a place of like knowing what it feels like, but I would assume that the best thing, you know, what feels the best is to actually give birth, like, you know, be the parents of, like, biological parent of that child. And in that case, you know, like makes sense, and that soul is not going to incarnate before you're ready to, you know, have them as your child, if that's how you choose to, you know, have your relationship, like create your relationship, and if it's good for all three to come into the world. But in other situations, you know, like you don't depend on other people. If you want as a soul to incarnate, you're always going to find the right match. It's not like God would be like, oops, sorry, like you're going to have to wait another 100 years because that couple that, you know, you promised to have you as a baby just changed their mind, so nothing I can do, oops, you know, next century maybe. Like God is going, you know, you're just going to find the next couple that, you know, like you resonate with on a level of frequency that are a good match for you as parents. Just as, you know, when you abort a baby, Jeff said in the sermon, like you can just like that soul just like, you know, goes back to the ether and then just like finds the next couple that is a vibrational match for them. So it's like you're not stuck with the soul, Danny. Like there's no one like swirling around you in the ether level waiting for you to finally choose to get pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, like about that, I remember reading about this where it's just like your love list. So even when you have your intentions for a baby, you would know that, like, what's your intention of what kind of soul would you, like, you know, call in, like what's the qualities and that's the like the feeling of who the soul is, and you just like that's your intention. So sometimes, like, I remember reading about this where parents have, you know, been a bit careless, and then they would have in a very conflict, if they are in a very conflicted mind state and they would have conceived a baby, the baby would feel the effects, and they would actually attract that sort of soul, you know, into their
Vibration.
family. Yes. So it's safe. Like, it's nice that you get to, yeah, it was nice to know even in the TFAS class when Shalia's like, you can have these very clear intentions that, you know, like I get to have my get pregnant at this time, and then even when having sex for multiple times, you're very clear that, okay, I'm not going to get pregnant. But very clear choice is you know, kept. So I guess it's safe, you know.
Yeah,
You're safe with everything here, and really like yeah, it's more like depending on your vibration, you know how they say, like if your vibration is like this, that's what you're going to give to your child, so that's kind of what you're going to attract in your vibration as well. But if you're like this, you're going to attract someone that wants to go that way as well, so it's going to align with that. And just to clarify something, because then you didn't got it what I asked, like with the baby and the harmonious union, the baby wasn't there already, it was just a soul, but the harmonious union was already, so the comparison itself doesn't make sense in this way. That's the point that I wanted to make, not that they're the same, because the baby still, like, someone else can, like, okay, you don't want it, someone else wants it.
And I think, you know, like the difference is also, you know, your harmonious union is like, it's like you, it's like the core of who you are, it's a part of you, whereas that baby, unless it's your twin flame, is not you. It's just like, you know, another soul that you can have a relationship with. Obviously, you know, we're all one and all of that, but you get my point. It's like different. Like your harmonious union was always there because it's like, you know,
it's a relationship with God.
Exactly.
Mhm. That feels like that's very cool. Like as you guys were talking, that I realized that, you know, that was like a very, very strong block that I had, and I've been working on all this time, because, you know, and maybe like someone who's watching this can really you know, relate to that. And it's that like I was raised with the thought like you have to be a mom, like that's like there is no way that you don't have kids, like you have to have kids, like if you don't, then like what is your purpose, right? So it's like that's why I thought that like, oh, like from fabric I come, you know, with a kid. And so like it feels good to really release that. And so if anybody who's watching this feels that way, or like is going through the same blog, like feeling like you're obligated because like it's just something that you do, this is a beautiful opportunity to realize that you don't, right? Because maybe even like maybe this happens to a lot of people too, right? Like, and then they feel so forced, feeling that they have to have babies, and then they get pregnant, they're like, oh no, like shit, like I can't do this, like I don't really desire it, and then boom, the abortion. And it came from the thought, you know, the misalignment thought. So everything starts with clarity, right? Like to bring yourself clarity so you can make the decision, as we were talking before. So yeah, this is very healing.
You know, a couple of things to that, like, you know, like it's funny how you said, like, you know, like you thought you came with a baby. It's almost kind of like you treated this relationship of having like a kid like a twin flame or soul family relationship, which it isn't. And then second thing is also that like child and parent, that these are just roles we take on for some time. And Jeff and Shay even like mentioned that, you know, at the age of like maturity, you can actually transcend that, these like, you know, the relationship where like someone is the parent and someone is the child, and transform it into a relationship of equals. So that child is actually just like another human being that like for some years you take on the role of raising them as a parent, and then you can let go of that role and meet them as a brother or sister in God, be it soul family or not soul family. So actually, you know, like child and parent is just like a temporary role. So it's kind of like, you know, saying like how could you, you know, come, that's like, you know, how could you come with that? Because it's like not, it's just like another soul who, like, you know, just like me, the relationship you would have with your child or the relationship you have with me as a friend, it's literally like the same, except for like you never took on the role of being my parent. But as soon as you know, wait to have a child and that child would grow up, you could have like a relationship with them, and obviously it would be probably a lot deeper than with most people because you've raised that person and lived with them and were family with them and all of that. But it's not like something that is, you know, like bound to you as in like a twin flame or soul family.
Exactly.
That is very good. And it's like, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what I'm doing with my father right now. You know, he's my soul. We are soul family. But now that we are both like, I'm an adult, he's an adult, right? Like we are having, like, we are transforming a relationship to just, you know, brother and sister, and like it's so much easier. Like, and he's still my dad, and he's always gonna be my father, right? But like now it's like he doesn't have the weight of like, oh, like I have to take care of this woman forever, or like he's like, okay, now like she takes care of herself. She's my, like she's always gonna be my daughter, but now we can actually be, you know, brother and sister, because that's how we all are to the eyes of God, right? Soul family or not. So that feels very good. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then even in like soul family, because obviously like with soul family, that can absolutely, you know, you can call in a child that is your soul family and all of that, which, you know, it's like, I guess like a really wonderful and beautiful experience. But even in soul family, you know, maybe in one lifetime that person A is your child, and in the next lifetime they are your brother or sister, and in the next lifetime they might be your mom or dad, like biologically speaking. So, you know, even like these roles, they constantly change. So just because someone is your child at one point doesn't mean they remain your child for all of eternity. It's just like a temporary role you step in, and that can, you know, obviously change from lifetime to lifetime with different people.
Yeah.
So like no one would be bound to you as your child, because that doesn't make sense, because you know, like
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Hmm. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Revati.
Yeah, just that like it felt very healing to even know that. And there's another part that they share that you can even give the baby up for adoption, and that won't incur karmic debt. And that was very gentle, very compassionate way to even look at it. And it's so true that you don't have to the woman doesn't need to feel guilt or this pressure or these um, that she can actually have options to even go through with the pregnancy and have the baby and give the baby up for adoption for people who are actually willing to take care of it. So it's nice to know that there is still somebody, there are parents out there who are maybe who are meant to even love your child perfectly. So it was very healing. Like this entire sermon was so healing. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you think about it, who is the ultimate parent that wants all the kids, that has all the kids? God. God always wants someone. And it's like I really love this too as well, that you don't incur karma if you just like give it to adoption instead of like just aborting it. But and just like the karma, like I like the implication of karma here, how it's done. Like if you have a kid and you actually like do the most loving thing in that situation, you basically just create good karma for you. Or like even if you raise a kid very well, you just love it perfectly, you just have good karma as well. And just the other side, when you're just like trying to take from that kid and just trying to use that as a mean of like, I know, for your own benefit in a way, not in a positive way, you just get more karma. So it seems so clearly how God just helps everyone to be in balance here. So you cannot do all these things. And how if you try to use a key, like how they said, like if you try to use a key to get something from your partner or to try to control someone, it's like you get so much negative karma out of that, because you're just using your life to control a different life, which is like insanity by itself.
How do you think one can use a kid?
Well, like if like I had a situation like this, at least in my country. It was uh, like a girl and a guy just had sex. They had it unprotected. She got pregnant, and then she started saying to him, "Hey, now we have to get married because I got pregnant. I'm not gonna abort this child." And basically, that person was like a guy that had like his father was rich, kind of stuff, and she wasn't that rich. So basically, she used that to get his money, kind of. So therefore, she started using that to control him, so she gets all the money that she wants from that relationship. Therefore, she used the baby in order to get something outside of her.
Or even, like the situation I've seen this kind of seen, or maybe it's just like in TV series, I don't know, but like I've heard about it mostly. It's kind of like, when like you're in a relationship and your man wants to split up with you, and then you get pregnant, so he stays on with you because he's not going to leave you pregnant and with a baby just coming. So, just kind of, like basically controlling other people through being pregnant and having a baby.
Yeah, there are real situations like this. I heard about this kind of stuff. Like they wanted to split up, and then they have a baby, so they're not doing that. So they're gonna live a miserable life with the baby, and then
They don't want in a relationship they don't want.
exactly.
Everyone loses. That's a shitstorm, to put it shortly, in a nutshell. So yeah, that's not a good thing to do. Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Something that came up when Lorenzo shared about him, like you feeling like the unwanted child. And like you said before, God is your ultimate parent. And even if there's a purpose, even if you came on earth through your parents, but there is somebody, your family, who is present to love you perfectly. So it's nice to know that, it's nice to know that even if someone was the unwanted child, that you can still make that choice and you can still call in your spiritual family. That there are people to love you to that extent. So, you can love yourself in that place and not feel like, oh no, I'm an accident, so I'm doomed for life. So you can still, yeah,
You can heal.
it's
There
nice.
are upsets. You heal through them with a mirror exercise, and
Yeah.
then you feel better and you don't have issues.
Yeah, and then you allow God to love you, because God is our ultimate parent.
And also in the situation, I think what helped me really to, I guess heal is like a theme of like rejection or feeling not wanted, because obviously we can experience that with a lot of people, not only our parents. It's just like getting clear that when someone doesn't want you, it has nothing to do with you. It's like their choice to want you or not, and you don't have control over that. But because they don't want you doesn't mean something is wrong with you, or you like not like want to, like unwanted or anything. It's just like their choice, and other people's choices are not your responsibility and don't have anything to do with you, other than obviously they mirror to you things you might believe yourself sometimes, which it's just like good to be aware of that. But other than that, like, yeah, don't let other people's choices tell you who you are.
Yeah, and in order for for you to really see that, to do that, right, like to not to allow others to tell you who you are pretty much, or what you should do, you have to work on yourself, so you can get clarity and you can master your spiritual maturity. And so from that place, everything unfolds so naturally in every area. And that's what Jeff and Shalia teach. So
Absolutely. Also, one thing that you mentioned earlier, Danny, I just wanted to, quickly address is like, how you said like you thought you had to be a mother and have children and all of that. And I think that's one thing I've also, we're really transcending in, through this like work, by like, getting really like clear of like when we really want a baby, and when, as a woman, we might just have a baby because it's like what society tells us we have to, like out of social obligation, basically, because that's what's expected of us. And I think like we're really like transcending that and learning that like it's okay to not have a baby as a mother, because again, being a mother is like a role you take. You can be mothering in so many ways, but it's not like, it's okay to not have a baby. Doesn't mean you're missing out in life or you're doing something wrong or any of that.
You have to love yourself first here, and if what you really desire is just to have a life where you don't see a baby, that's okay, because you're just loving life. You're just like loving life to the fullest, like with your twin flame, getting harmonious union. Just that will inspire more, and those that are having the desire to have a baby will just bring that. But otherwise, why can't you just live life with your twin flame and then just like be happy like that, if that's the way, without a baby, if that's the way that you want? Because maybe who knows, like maybe you want to travel a lot, and maybe that will be much easier. So it's important for you to see the benefits for both situation, in the understanding of like whatever it is, it's perfect for you. And I really like, I saw the idea of like see what the laws are for, like, your country with these things, where you want to live in. It kind of like brings the idea of like, in which country do I want to bring my baby into? If you want a baby, where do you want, how do you want to do that? What's the perfect scenario for my baby or for me?
Also, Jeff just commented with something really amazing. I love this. So he said, you can be mother to few and or mother to all.
that's exactly what I was thinking. Oh my God, thank you so much for that, Jeff. Like I was literally thinking when you were saying that, you don't need to mother a baby, because like, since I started my journey, I was like, oh, I feel more like mothering whoever God wants me to mother. And that feels good, So that's
Exactly.
so beautiful. Yeah, and very healing.
One last thing that I just want to quickly bring up before we close this off is, I was like thinking after, I watched the service the first time of like, like kind of this like how you incur like karma when you have an abortion. And I was, thinking that like, it was so healing for me to hear that, like, yeah, you have karma, but like that's usually, it's going to show up in like an inconvenience or something you can work through and then it's like gone. And it really showed me, like in some cases, like the better option is to choose that bit of karma instead of, going through other like big shit that is going to bring you even more karma. And just kind of like, I guess, to like not be afraid of like, if like you have to make a choice that brings you some karma. If that is like the better choice that saves you from even more karma, that's like okay, and it doesn't make you a bad, evil person or whatnot. It's just like, I guess, kind of choosing the lesser evil, which I guess evil like in sense of like, just like karma you have to work through. That's not who you are, and it's just just something to be worked through.
Yeah, I just wanted to take like just a moment to say thank you so much for Jeff for like saying that, or Guru, to everyone who's watching this. Like it's very healing, and like it's the perfect way to conclude literally like everything that we've been saying. It's so healing, and so yeah, that was very nice. Yeah, to really honor that.
Exactly, and it's really perfect because that's kind of what I was leaning into. Like, if you just don't want a kid, you can just love others, like as your kid in that way. You can just let God flow through you to be like the father or the mother of many, and that's really beautiful that you've just stated that clearly. Yeah.
Oh, he actually said that. Shalia said that.
Oh,
So
well, they're one, so.
they're one, so it's one and the same.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that any of you has on the heart you want to quickly bring up, or does everyone feel complete?
Feels very peaceful, very healing. This is very important. I feel like everyone should listen to this, and there's so many layers to it. And I keep going back to the previous sermon when Jeff said that you need to respect your sexual energy. Just respecting that. That meant so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, have sex with your twin flame or as much as you want. Right? That's what Jeff said. It's like, oh, like just however you want it. But yeah, don't leak it, and take care of yourself and of your decisions.
Perfect. Well, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much. I loved this discussion today. This was very, as Rati said, healing and enlightening. And yes, with that being said, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.